Do you see sort of a strengthening of the whole nuclear supply chain coming? To your point around like there's a lot of oversight of specific things. You need the fuel. We need practice with all of these motions to sort of reach the economies of scale. I know, Aalo is one really promising company in the space, but this is the sort of effort that takes like a whole industry sort of like maturing at the same pace. Do you see other people sort of in your class and like that turning tide and more talent and energy and focus coming into this kind of at all levels?
When I speak to other nuclear founders, it's generally the kind of thing where everyone wants to help each other because it's a pretty massive industry and most people are in this for the right reasons of wanting to better humanity. It really is the kind of thing where a rising tide floats all boats. Certain things like supply chain around fuel is helpful to everyone. Certain things like supply chain around key materials is helpful to everyone. And the most important one is the more work all these companies do to make the public want nuclear, the more it helps everyone too. I think it's definitely quite a collaborative spirit, yeah.
Have you felt public opinion sort of changing in the time that you've been in the space?
I'd say definitely. When I speak to people who've been in it for longer, so for me, it's been maybe 3 years. For others who have been 6, 10 years plus, it's most interesting talking to people who have been in for like 50 years. Looking at the past 10 years, let's say, there has been a real shift. Obviously, Fukushima set the industry back a little bit. And I think that's an interesting question as well is next time something like Fukushima happens, and just statistically, it may well, how do we look at that? Because a lot of people have said, if that had happened in modern day, like today, it can almost be portrayed as a good thing instead of a bad thing. On the one hand, you have the relocation, which is clearly bad, but also you could use it to portray exactly what the risks really are of those radiation levels. Overall, I want to avoid those from happening. But if you talk to pro-nuclear advocates from the past 5 or 6 years, for them, there was a big shift in the middle of that period. It's probably a combination of things. This is actually an interesting question I should talk to them about to find out more, but I think it's a combination of, even in the past few years, the increasing concern around carbon emissions and so on, but also just people realizing that nuclear is safer than they thought. It's hard to say exactly why in the past few years that started happening.
It was obviously because of your tweets.
Yeah. I think it really is amazing to me how big of an impact small groups of people can have. As an example, there's a pro-nuclear advocate named Chris Kiefer in Canada. For him and a couple others who have kind of formed Canadians for Nuclear Energy, they've been able to save entire large nuclear plants. And same thing in the US. There's other groups who are very small that have done this amazing thing. And it's really important because it's one thing to try to want to build new plants, but if we're not keeping existing ones open, which have already been built and have already had the economics baked in, and then now we're just kind of pure profit, so to speak. If we can't keep those open, then that's priority number one. That's the first thing we should be solving.